Hey, this is Kamal Vidal, and you're listening to the Devy Devotion.
Welcome in to the Devy Devotional Podcast, a show devoted to all things Devy and C2C. Hosted by John Arrington and Aaron Wilcox. This dynamic duo brings you actionable strategies with player-driven analysis for your Devy and C2C leagues. Let's dive in.
Let's dive into a freshman mock draft. Welcome into the Devy Devotional, where we stay devoted to Devy. I'm your host, Dynasty Coach A, joined as always by Aaron Wilcox at Aaron Wilcox86 on Twitter. And tonight we are going to be doing a freshman mock draft. We're going to be drafting just the freshman recruits that are entering college this season. And honestly, I'm pretty excited to do it, but we didn't want to just do it ourselves. We did that on the Full Tilt Devy pod last week. So, you know, as much as you guys want to hear from us, we decided we needed to get some other people. We needed to get some fresh meat and new blood and all that kind of good stuff onto the pod. And so we sent out like a raven or whatever you want to call it, to campus2canton.com, and we got like half of their crew over here, and we're going to bring them all on here in just a second. But first, I want to check in with Aaron real quick. How are you doing there, buddy?
Hey, I'm doing well, and I am certainly excited for tonight's episode. Let's bring the guests on. Like you said, just some great guests from campuscan.com.
Absolutely. So there's no like good way to do this as far as taking away the overlay and then adding in 4 other people, but I'm going to go ahead and do it. So it's going to be a little tricky transition here, but here we go. I'm going to go ahead and add Matt Bruning, Colin Decker, Corey Pereira, I believe it is, and of course Mike Valerie, who you guys all know at this point. Matt, how are you doing? Give your @ and all that kind of good stuff.
Fantastic. Thank you guys for having me on here, and you can find me at SportsFanaticMB on Twitter.
Absolutely. Mike, how are you doing tonight, buddy? You were a little late getting us started here.
Yes, off my game today, but that's because I saved all my energy for this freshman mock draft, so now I'm doing well.
And Corey, had to put away the little, not put away, put to bed the little one. Whoa.
Yeah, no, he's keep me busy, keep me pretty late here, and I'm glad he's down now at least, and I can focus on this freshman mock draft here.
Absolutely. And then last but not least, Colin, how are you doing there, buddy?
I'm good, man. I'm good. First time, long time. Happy to be on here doing some freshman stuff. Very excited.
Yeah, and we are starting this a little bit late, so we're gonna kind of try to speed along here. We will get to all of the ats and all that kind of stuff and what they're doing and everything at the end of the pod, so don't skip through it. Definitely don't miss that part. They're obviously doing a lot over at campus2canton.com, and we're going to be talking about that tonight. One of the main things that they are focused on right now is the freshmen, which is why we brought them on and why we're excited to do this. But because we're starting so late, we're going to go ahead and just dive right into this draft and get this thing started. We have, it's going to be a 12-man draft, super flex, tight end premium, whatever you want to call it, your normal way of doing things, our normal way of doing things at the very least. And we just randomize the order. It's going to be Matt, Aaron, Mike, Colin, me, and Corey, and then we're going to snake. So we're going to do that for each round, and that's basically how we're going to do it. Matt, you are on the clock with the 101 of the freshman mock draft.
All right. Well, I mean, this is a pretty easy pick, in my opinion. It's down to only 2 players, in my opinion. I'm going to take Jeremiah Smith. I think, in my opinion, he is the best wide receiver in this class. Micah Hudson's very close. But with him being, 6 foot, I always forget how big he is, 6'3", 214, runs 21.7 miles per hour, and that's just short of 22, which we have is like, and anybody who runs over 22 miles per hour is elite speed. So you're already talking about a guy at 6'3", 213 pounds, can run that fast, and he can do everything. He creates separation within the route, creates separation at the catch point, creates separation off the line. He is an incredible wide receiver, and then you add in, he is going to The Ohio State University to be coached by Brian Hartline. In my opinion, don't you look at me like that, Colin. It is The Ohio State University. Getting coached by the best wide receiver coach in the nation, one Brian Hartline. I mean, I would say it would be a catastrophic failure of the Ohio State program if Jeremiah Smith is not a first-round pick, and I would imagine top 5 pick in his draft class. He's the easy pick for me here.
Now, are you? I mean, obviously, it doesn't sound like you're worried at all, and we know you're a little bit of a homer, but I'm sure. But you also made some good points, so I'm not hating on it at all. But I mean, are you at least a little bit concerned that the freshmen haven't been really getting on the field and like just killing it lately for Ohio State? I'm not saying that it won't happen even in year 2 or whatever, but like there's been quite a few big names, Brandon Ennis being one of the biggest names probably recently, where they just don't seem to get on the field, don't surpass your year 1 zeros and all that, and next thing you know, hey, we're already out on this guy, and it's like, well, but he was the guy, or I'm sorry, the guy, if of course, because we're talking about Ohio State.
I would say it is completely unfair to all of the freshmen that have come before him to put them in the same class as him. He is truly special. I don't think as much as I love Brandon Ennis, I know Colin and me were holding on to that rope as long as we could to possibly not give up on him. But I mean, his comparisons are, Julio Jones. My personal favorite, and it's the one that I put in the guide, and I actually think he is this player, is Josh Gordon. And I mean, if you look at what Josh Gordon did in the NFL, if you take out the weed issues, there's a shot he could have been like a prolific wide receiver with what he did with, what was that? Was it Derek Anderson at quarterback? I'm trying to remember that one year with the Browns where they almost made the playoffs. Like he has that ability because he is that size speed freak. But the difference was too, Josh Gordon was still raw as like a route runner. Jeremiah Smith doesn't have that. He's already a very, very good route runner. I don't think anybody in that room can challenge him. Like, I think it's legitimately set up as Carnell Tate and Emeka are the 2 that will start over him. I think Ennis gets in there, but I would not be surprised if Jeremiah Smith is out there starting because he is the only one in that room that comes in with that size as well. And I know I'm pretty sure I wrote it in the guide, and I know Volume Pigs Justin, who also writes for us at the site, brought up that he thinks he can do it. I think he breaks the 500-yard mark as a true freshman at Ohio State, which no wide receiver has ever done. Like, I have legit, I guess it would be stupid to say 0 concerns, but like it's at like a 0.00001% concern that he doesn't break at least one year 1 0 threshold.
I love it. Aaron, what do you think? And you're up at 102.
Yeah, no, I do like the pick, and I honestly don't mind going the wide receiver route there in these types of drafts, just because we don't know what these freshman quarterbacks are going to become. We don't know how they're going to develop in these landing spots that they've went to, and they can be really promising, but I actually feel a little bit better about some of the wide receivers here in their translation, and that's why I'm going to go with Ryan Williams, Alabama. And I just don't know. I feel a little bit more safe about him. And at the end of the day, he's just such a dynamic weapon and athlete out there. And he's so young too. He's a guy who switched classes. So, I mean, he's supposed to be going into his senior year and he's actually going to be playing for Alabama. And I just think he gets on the field regardless of how young he is. He's kind of a thin guy at this point, but that athleticism is insane. And that's a team that's starved for big time playmakers. So Ryan Williams, I think he has a lot of things going for him. And yes, he needs to continue to develop, but I really like pretty much all the aspects of his game, whether you like to go by more of an analytical approach or a film-based approach. He displays a lot of great traits and great track speed, all of that. So Ryan Williams, Alabama is my 102 here.
Mike, what do you think of that pick there? How are you feeling about Williams?
That's a good pick. I know me and Corey had our freshman episode. We kind of had the same tier 1 for the top 3 freshman wide receivers. So, it's a good pick. It's a good pick. No complaint about that.
Does anyone have any concerns about Williams before we move on?
No.
He's a little slender, I guess. We're gonna have to see some weight added to that frame a little bit, but he's super young. I mean, that's not something that I'm super concerned about at this point. I mean, video game type numbers, like impressive ability, movement ability to gear down, speed up, everything the modern day NFL wants in a wide receiver. So I think he's just gonna be fine. But that's one thing I just like to see him, keep adding weight to that frame.
It's a bit raw at the catch point too, right? Am I
yeah,
yeah.
I mean, I don't know. If those are the only concerns of a guy who reclassified and jumped up and immediately moved up to like a top 5 wide receiver in the class, I mean, that's pretty impressive. And you talk about him going to Alabama with Kalen DeBoer and what we saw him do for Jalen McMillan, Romo Dunze, and Polk at his young age and getting him right off the bat. Like, I think, you could have the argument for Micah Hudson there. I don't think there's a wrong pick with any of those three in whatever order you go. I think Ryan Williams is going to be the next, like, the wide receiver. I would think it was like not comparing him skill wise, but like the next Devonta Smith from Alabama, like just breaks out as a true freshman, then just goes on to have like an incredible career. I don't think he stays 4 years, but has an incredible career before going into the NFL.
I don't really know Kalen DeBoer's like development cycle. I think he hops around a little bit too fast for us, but like Romo Dunze and Jalen Polk both have amazing ball skills too. So him being raw at the catch point, I think will be one of the faster issues we see get solved with him.
I mean, you can also look at his time at Fresno State. I mean, he made Jalen Cropper, like he was a guy that we had as like a sleeper for a stretch of time, obviously didn't end up actually being a sleeper, but that was at Fresno State. He had Ty Freifogel and I can't remember the other one at Indiana. Like he made those guys relevant. So the worst thing you're going to say here about Ryan Williams is he's going to put up production in Kalen DeBoer's offense. And if you do that at Bama from an early age with his athletic skill set, the NFL will find a role for you, even if maybe he's not the most developed guy at the catch point and never really gets there. I don't really think that's what you're asking him to do. So I think an NFL front office is going to be able to figure him out, even if he's not a totally well-rounded wide receiver like we might want him to be at the end of his tenure.
I like it. Mike, who are you thinking now?
Yeah. So the board fell exactly how I thought it would fall. So I only researched one guy here. No, I'm just playing. So Micah Hudson's going to be my pick here, wide receiver for Texas Tech. If you took away landing spot, I think he would be a consensus wide receiver one across the board. Even if you like just flip him and Jeremiah Smith and Micah Hudson goes to Ohio State, we would be nonstop talking about him. I know Matt Bruning would be nonstop talking about him if that was the case. Micah Hudson is we got him clocked at 21.4 miles per hour. As far as production goes in Texas, and this is like 5A1 competition, 1,370 receiving yards. That's 125 yards a game. Strength of schedule on max prep is 25. Usually you kind of want to see like above like a 15. So no problem saying that he plays against tough competition in Texas and has produced in that competition. He's listed at 5'11.5", 195, which is just kind of the perfect size in today's NFL as far as like separators go. And that's what I think he really specializes in. He's a great separator, but also what he does at the catch point is just special for somebody his size. And that's not really a trait I think translates along the way though. But I did thought it was interesting because I was kind of looking at the like on 3 comp and 24/7 Sports comp. They got him to Garrett Wilson, which I thought was actually a pretty solid comp. And that's a guy that was like 5'11.5", like 6 foot, but also was very good at the catch point. And I think that's just a solid comp. So I love Micah Hudson. I understand the concerns about Texas Tech doesn't really have the rich history that we like. We like Kitley's offense, super productive all the way through. His first year at Texas Tech, I thought he beat expectations. His second year at Texas Tech, I thought he fell very short of expectations. Not excited about the quarterback there, but there's no talent here. Like he could lead this room in receiving. Now that might be like 600, 700, 800 yards, like max. But as far as a true freshman goes, like that's amazing. That's an amazing true freshman year. And I'm not really, again, too concerned about this landing spot because the transfer portal is pretty active and everyone offered him. It's not like Texas Tech was his best offer. He got offered by every single major program you would want to see on an offer sheet.
Yeah. The only thing I'm concerned about is Baron Morton. It honestly, like 800 yards would probably be like a 50% market share as a freshman, as a true freshman. Like it's going to be so ugly, but I see the talent. I understand that. And I understand that he's going to be the only guy. So he probably will get a 40, 50% market share, something to that effect. It's going to be so ugly. They're not going to be pretty stats, but hopefully he can make them prettier than they are or might be.
Yeah, and he's a pretty versatile guy too. Like, I mean, he's a guy who can take some rushes. He's a guy who supplies some value as a returner as well. So he's got a lot of avenues to get on the field for a team that really like needs that kind of playmaker at that position. So, I mean, we're talking about year 1 zeros and we're talking about early production. Like, he's probably going to check a lot of those boxes right now. And I can see a pretty big value rise by the time next year comes around. Like maybe he's round 2 or holds that round 2 because I think he's actually going in like round 2 right now in like Devy startups or round 3-ish, whatever, if he ends up making it there. But I think he's going to hold that value throughout the year.
I like it. Colin, you are up at 104.
Yeah, this is more or less how I was expecting the board to fall here. With these,
Okay.
these are the top 3 wide receivers in a wide receiver class that is very good, and in a quarterback and running back class that's not as good as we've seen in recent years. So I was expecting these 3 to come off the board. These are like my tier 1 players. So that doesn't necessarily surprise me. I have one more tier 1 guy, and so I'm going to take him here. That's Dylan Raiola, the quarterback headed to Nebraska. I had a little bit of a up and down recruiting, kind of a whirlwind recruiting history here, where he was at Ohio State and then he went to Georgia, and now he's at Nebraska. And if at bare minimum, this is a dude who's going to play right off the jump. They can't trot out Henrik Harburg out there again. The corpse of Jeff Sims, like they're going to play Dylan Raiola. This was an absolute coup for them to get him. But just as a player, I think Raiola, a lot of people want to say like, oh, Patrick Mahomes or something like that. And like Mahomes is a unicorn. Like you can't compare anybody to Mahomes. I think Raiola also doesn't have that same off-script playmaking, but man, this dude has a howitzer attached to his arm. He can make any throw that you ask him to, and he's got very good ball placement too. Like you see him leading receivers, you see him throwing with some anticipation out there. I think he's a smart quarterback, and very, like I said, with the accuracy and the ball placement too. 1 interception on 250 pass attempts as a senior. That's impressive. He has to kind of get a little bit better off script. Like I mentioned, he's going to have to take some lumps at Nebraska, but I think as a quarterback, he's got an NFL ceiling for sure. And like I said, I don't really have any other tier 1 players here. So this was a pretty easy choice for me here with Raiola.
Yeah, and he's basically been the QB1 in the class for a couple of years now, if I remember correctly. I know people, have definitely fallen in love with Lagway and a couple other ones, but it just seems like he's always been the guy, except for he was going to a different school at the time, or committed to a different school at the time. And now we probably have maybe a worse situation, but maybe a better coach. I don't know. I don't even know if I want to go that far, but regardless, obviously it's a good pick. I think he should be picked probably in the top 5 at the very least. I don't think. Does anyone have any concerns to kick him out of the top 5? Because like we were talking before, how that last C2C mock, which is random people, we're not saying anything about C2C, but that last mock had him at 108. So I'm just wondering, is there any reason for him not to be top 5?
No, it's egregious for him not to go top 5. I don't think he should have been the first QB off the board. And I think Corey's about to get the steal of the draft, because I would bet I know where Corey's going, and it's his QB1. But I think falling to 1.8 is egregious. He should at least fall out of the top 5.
You're gonna get me sniped here, Matt. Now, why? Here I am, just like getting so excited for my pick.
Oh, I
now,
thought you were next. Oh,
John's gonna
bad.
spoil me now, Matt.
My
You're ruining it for me, man.
Matt's out here tipping picks.
Come on, man.
Right. So now I'm going to take my quarterback. No.
Yeah.
Honestly, like so I'm a Florida Gator. I'm a fan. Both my parents went there, been there, like, live in Florida, big fan. I don't ever want a Florida Gator quarterback. I just don't. Yeah, sorry. I'm the complete opposite of Matt Bruning here. I'm not believing. I don't want that. So I'm not saying he's not good, but I don't want him. And honestly, you guys might not even like this pick, but I don't care. I have fallen in love with Cam Coleman out of Auburn. I honestly believe that, the services, and I know that you guys are always kind of like, the services aren't that great and everything. And I agree with you. I've done research on it. The hit rates are not great. But the hit rates from most people are not great. So, if we're talking about freshmen here, so not really hating on him either. But man, he's the wide receiver 2 in the class. He's 6'3", 180 pounds. He's going to a wide open spot. We have at least decent quarterbacks there, so like, even if you want to make the same argument as Micah Hudson, say like, oh, there's no one throwing to him, I'm not going to sit there and argue with you, but they have that wide open ability to where at least he's gonna be the guy. There's a couple other prospects they're going there, but like I feel like Cam Coleman is going to be the guy. He's comped to George Pickens, and I mean that might be a good thing or a bad thing depending on how you feel about Pickens, but I feel like if you're thinking about George Pickens in college, it's especially like earlier on in college, it's probably a good thing. After injuries and maybe some mental issues and things like that, not exactly head screwed on straight for Pickens. Like if you think about it, maybe someone who does have their head screwed on straight, maybe he's a better player there. So I love that. I honestly, it's a joke, or it's become a joke, but like me and Mike are like the biggest Hank Brown fans ever, or at least I think I've taken that over now. Like I'm falling in love with Hank Brown as well. So if we can get the Hank Brown to Cam Coleman connection going, I'm going to be all over it. But I don't know. I mean, it seems like for some reason, I feel like he should be in that tier 1. And yet, you guys all seem to be in consensus here. And it seems like most people are. I'm the odd man out here, where it's just like, no, those first 3 wide receivers, that's the tier 1. And then after that, then we can get into these other guys. And I'm saying, what beyond the QB situation is kicking Coleman out of tier 1?
Well, I know that our recruiting team has credited him with some pretty good athletic testing, and he's supposed to be like a world-class athlete. But I guess like sometimes when I watch him, I don't feel like I see the separation there from him, really. Like I don't feel like the play speed matches some of the athletic ability. The thing he's going for him is like his amazing ability above the rim, right? And that's going to translate to the next level, and he's going to have that in his bag while he kind of like refines the rest of his craft. But I kind of worry that he's more of like a Mike Williams type, where like he's going to be inconsistent a little bit, and that's where he's really going to make his hay, is winning at the catch point, winning as a bigger body receiver, winning with leverage. Because I don't know, I just didn't see the separation that I was expecting to on tape. I went into it expecting a lot more, and I came away like a little bit underwhelmed with him.
And I've come up with some different comps for him. Like, I mean, Hakeem Butler, I think in some ways is pretty fair. But even going up to like a T Higgins is like a high end comp for him. And I'm not saying that necessarily every single piece of their skill sets would match up, but I just see some of those flashes with Cam Coleman where, I mean, he is athletic enough. It's just, is he going to be quite nuanced enough as a player, or is he just going to rely on trying to moss guys all the time with his great ball skills and his good size?
Well, he's also 17 years old. He won't be 18 until August. So that's another thing, thinking that he can still grow as a player. But he's already that good. He's already the wide receiver 2 in the class, according to the services. But, he's still up there. I mean, he's getting respect in some places at least.
Yeah, and I like Cam Coleman as well. I think, like Corey mentioned, his ability above the rim, and even tracking the ball deep too is one of the best in the class. He's got to kind of refine the technical side of his game a little bit more, but I see a role in the NFL for him. I don't want to say no matter what, because things can go wrong. These are freshmen; they're so far out. But I'd be pretty surprised if he doesn't at least get a role in the NFL. Now, is it going to be a like high-end fantasy relevant role, or what? I don't exactly know. But our guide has him comped to like A.T. Perry, like kind of athletically right now, and I think he is a rich man's A.T. Perry. Right now, I could see that, and with a ceiling to get even higher. And A.T. Perry had some nice games as a New Orleans Saint. So even if he ends up being a rich man's A.T. Perry, I think that's not a bad pick in this range.
I think he's really good at throttling down, and that's kind of like where he gets his separation from. It's kind of getting these DBs to like go into tempo with him, and he can just throttle down real fast and then cut inward or whatever. His cuts aren't crisp, but his throttle down ability is really fast. He's got some pretty good like spatial awareness as far as like high scores go. I don't really see a lot of that. They just kind of want to run real fast, 100 miles an hour all the time. But I think he knows like once he throttles down where the open spaces are to turn into. And then I think his ball skills are pretty elite. I mean, just like one-handed grabs from the UA All-American 1v1s. Like his 1v1s were pretty nice too. So a lot of not route running, but everything else that you want to see on a perimeter wide receiver, like he has that.
I like it. All right, so Corey, I do not believe that I sniped you there, but you actually have 2 picks, so you can snipe me coming back around. But who are you taking here?
Yeah, I don't know if I will, but as Matt alluded to it, I am going to take my quarterback one in this class. That's Mr. DJ Legway, who had just a monster senior season this past year. Accounted for just over 5,500 yards, 75 touchdowns, and a Texas 6A record-breaking 59 touchdowns. Like he really soared this year. And I mean, before this year, he had barely even passed for over 2,000 yards. But you've just seen the steady progression for this kid, like 55% as a sophomore completion percentage, 67% as a junior, 72% as a senior. Then, threw for that 4,604 yards, ran for almost 1,000 yards as well, like a Gatorade National Player of the Year. Like, there's a reason he climbed so highly. And I mean, this is a true dual threat kid, like 2,000 yards rushing pretty much over his high school career as well. Our recruiting team has him just shy of 21 miles per hour. So there's a good foundation there of skills. I mean, when you kind of look at him like as a passer, there's a lot of unorthodox mechanics there. I do think he shows the arm strength that you want to see, but he's not afraid to test the limits either. You see him throw some tight window throws. You see some good anticipation from him, but it's a lot of really unorthodox mechanics, like even throwing off his back foot. Sometimes I think his pocket presence isn't the greatest either. Those are some of the things that I kind of want to see come together for him a little bit, but we have to see if those are going to continue to work for him at the next level. We're thinking about guys like Patrick Mahomes and these guys that have made these unorthodox mechanics like very trendy, these baseball mechanics very trendy. And we have to see if DJ Legway is going to be able to translate that to the next level. And that's probably where my concerns mostly come around. But then if you're talking about like even comparing him to like Raiola, and the reason that I kind of have Legway a little bit higher is when I was watching the tape, I just felt I mean, you watch Raiola, it's like deep bomb after deep bomb after deep bomb after deep bomb. And like sometimes you're missing, like there's a little bit of lack of anticipation there. He's making like contested targets. And like I felt from Legway, I saw some better anticipation. I saw him leading receivers a little bit better. I saw him willing to throw those tight window throws a little bit better as well, like throwing it, testing defenses when two guys are closing in. And that rushing ability on top of it. We're talking about fantasy here. Like this is a guy who can bring that extra dimension to your offense as well as a rusher. So I think that his ceiling just comes to me as a little bit higher than Raiola right now. So I'm happy to take him here as my quarterback one. Still not the greatest quarterback class in general. Like we're not taking these guys at 1.1, 1.2, but still a guy that I think has plenty of upside. And with the growth that we've already seen, can continue to grow at the next level. Now, I will say going to Florida, we did see them kind of mess up Anthony Richardson a little bit, like not mess him up, but they didn't really gear the game plan around him very well. And I'm worried that hopefully Napier's not even there by the time DJ Legway becomes the quarterback, but will they be able to game plan around him and create the offense around him? Or are they going to try to pigeonhole him into like this offense or something like that? But regardless, I love the skill set, hoping Napier's gone and we get a new offensive mind in there to really help him progress as a passer.
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't want to say a foregone conclusion, but I would be surprised if Napier is back in 2025 with how bad they've been and how brutal that Florida schedule is. So I think it's pretty safe to say Napier won't be back. I think one of the concerns I have with Legway just situationally at Florida is when Napier leaves, they're going to bring in a new staff. It's not the guy. They're not the person who recruited Legway. Legway, the transfer portal, you can use that whenever you want. He could go somewhere else. I think it's just situationally a little more fluid. And then you touched on it as a player. Like Legway definitely has a higher ceiling than Raiola does, especially from a fantasy perspective. I think that senior season was really special. 72% completion percentage. You highlighted all those statistics, improved year after year after year, but I still need to see like more from him as a passer. I don't think he understands the game quite the same way that I've seen Raiola. I know you mentioned the lots and lots of deep balls from him, but that's because he's so good at that. I think Raiola has the higher floor. Legway, though, with that ceiling and that rushing ability is really tantalizing.
Yeah, I mean, for me, Legway's pretty easily QB1. And it's because I don't disagree with what Colin said, and that Raiola has the safer floor and the higher floor as well. But we have those two so close together, and I think TJ Legway is quite raw. So if you're telling me as a guy who's quite raw and could make these improvements, and he's already that close to Raiola, just shows me that he could clearly jump him easily. I think you want Napier to be fired, if you want me to be honest with you. And I don't think it matters what coaching staff comes in, because they're going to bring in someone likely that wants Legway there. And if they don't, Legway is going to be what Caleb Williams was when he entered the portal. We all knew he was following Lincoln Riley, but he will be that sought after. I mean, just using Lincoln Riley as the example, to try to flip Lagway on signing day from Florida, from Billy Napier. So if you already have the quote-unquote QB guru coming after you before you even hit the transfer portal, they really going to stick with – I don't even know who they have there anymore. He's Miller Moss. Oh, you're going to let Miller Moss stick around for another year? He probably has it with COVID. No. If Lincoln Riley goes and gets DJ Lagway, I guarantee you everybody at C2C will rank DJ Lagway ahead of Dylan Raiola if he ends up with Lincoln Riley. So it just doesn't make sense to me to have him under him because of the skill set. I understand Raiola is definitely more refined and has less to improve on. And I know it's crazy to say, but like right now believe he has a better shot of being a first-round pick than Lagway does because of how raw Lagway is, but just the raw – I mean, the dude threw a 60-yard pass, like jumping in the air with like horrible mechanics. And like, if he refines that, he has the upside of like a top 5 NFL quarterback.
Yeah, it's really tough for me. Like I said, when was the last time the Gators had a good quarterback? So it's so tough for me to just yeah, pretty much. I mean, to be unbiased about it and everything. I would love for Lagway to be the difference maker and be the difference there. But man, it's just hard for me to believe. And honestly, I attribute it to, they don't have a coach. Like, you have to have a coach before you can have a quarterback, and they never seem to have the coach. Like, everyone gets really excited about him, and then like a year later, they're like, "Why do we ever hire this coach?" and you guys do a lot more with the coaching trees and all that kind of stuff. I have no idea, but it seems like every single person hates Napier.
Hey, look, when Ryan Day loses to that team up north this year, he'll become Florida's next coach. So there you go, and then everybody will love DJ Lagway as well.
Let's pray.
Bro.
Right. All right. Well, Corey, you're up for another one, though.
All right. I'll come back around here to. I'm still not going to take the first running back off the board. I'm not going to take another quarterback. So I'm going back to the wide receiver. I'm taking a guy that I watched him back to back with Cam Coleman, actually. Okay. And when I watched him, this is what really separated that play speed for me. And that's TJ Moore. Going over to Clemson, 6'3", 195 pounds, 21.9 miles per hour as an athlete. And you could just see the play speed jump off the thing. I think he has some similar abilities above the rim as Cam Coleman from a ball tracking perspective, from a hands perspective, from timing his elevation perspective, long strider. He just plays a lot faster than Cam Coleman did, in my opinion. Still not a very big yak guy, not a very big guy who's quick in short spaces, but he's still that type of archetype, I think, that we love so much with Cam Coleman, that he's going to succeed that way at the next level. Plus, he has that extra dimension of the speed as the deep threat, as can beat defenses down the field, can get behind a defense. I mean, his stats from high school, just over 2,300 yards over the past, or just under 2,300 yards over the past 2 years, 24.9 average catch. So this guy was just a deep threat all over the place. 92 catches, accounted for 30 touchdowns. So, I mean, he's a big play threat. And I think going over to Clemson, the one thing I am worried about is this kind of seems like the same archetype that Clemson always goes for and just doesn't seem to work out. But I thought maybe they were like changing a leaf, bringing in, Tyler Brown and Antonio Williams, and maybe they like these trendier slot guys, but they're going back to the big wide receiver bringing in Terrence Moore. But I think he's got a pretty interesting skill set. Let's just hope that I'm not upset in the way that I was with Adam Randall, which wasn't even his fault. That was the injury, and he never came back the same. Okay, I'm still holding true to that, but let's just hope that Terrence Moore can be a little bit more than that at the next level.
Yeah, I love TJ Moore. He's from Tampa, so of course I have to love him. But the funny thing is that Aaron, I think, was the one that comped Cam Coleman to T Higgins, but on 247 they actually have TJ Moore comped to T Higgins.
Yeah,
so it's pretty funny. But I mean, you were saying you watch them back to back. I mean, maybe at least similar players. Even if you don't necessarily love, or you seem to like TJ Moore more. But yeah, I just thought that was hilarious. But yeah, I like TJ Moore quite a bit. I first of all, it sounds stupid, but I love looking at the picture of him and seeing do they look like a football player, that kind of thing. And TJ Moore looks like a football player. Yeah. Like he's a man. He's got that extra 10 pounds and it shows for sure. But I'm wondering about like the route running ability and stuff like that. It's not all there yet, quite yet, but I believe he has everything to put it all together. Once again, we're going, it's going to be the theme of the show, probably, at least for me. It's the quarterback. Is the quarterback going to be able to get him the ball and all that kind of stuff? So, we at some point we have to just hope that the talent shows through for these guys. But I mean, it's just another one where, is Klubnik going to be able to get TJ Moore the ball, or anyone in the ball? And if that's the case.
Wait, K Klubnik sucks? I didn't know that.
Hey, Aaron and I had Mike on. Actually, the funny thing, I was listening to it last night because I was trying to find a clip from a show and I cannot find it. But I listened through like 10 different shows and I was trying to find this one clip. But I listened to Aaron and I explaining to Mike that we were not Cade Klubnik fans. We had him at 5 in the class, and Mike was like, "No, I still got him at 1, dude. Like he's my guy." And I was just
I think I had him at 1. I'm gonna defend myself on that one.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
I think
I'm gonna find the
clip.
I'm gonna find the clip. I think you had him higher. I know that, but I will find the clip. I won't disparage just yet. But yeah, we were always out on Klubnik. That was never he never flashed. I mean, even like year one, nothing. Like you see. Even these guys, Lenore Sellers, like Jackson Arnold, Nico, like they show some flashes of something. Klubnik never showed anything, even in the smallest of samples. So yeah, I was just never a fan. But that's enough about that. I guess that brings me onto the clock. Unless Mike would like to defend himself real quick. I did kind of throw him under the bus there.
No, I think Drew Aller was my 1. Pretty sure about that. Has some pretty good flashes. I like the build. I'm kind of a sizist, so.
We do know that, especially when it comes to the running backs. We do know that you are a sizist. But, all right, so this made my decision a little easier because honestly, like I kind of wanted to go with my hometown boy and TJ Moore and everything. But I'm gonna do another one that's probably skipping a few guys on the list if you're just going by like your consensus picks and everything. But honestly, talking about Nico I, we just were saying how like he's shown flashes, he's going to be great, everyone expects him to be amazing, and yet we're not going to be excited about the wide receiver that's going there, and that the only person in front of him is Squirrel White. So I'm taking Mike Matthews here. Honestly, I've fallen in love with the speed, I've fallen in love with the athleticism. He has the size, he has like just about everything that we want. I mean, the comparison on 247 is Rashee Rice. I don't love that all that much, but if you asked a lot of people in Dynasty right now, they would say, "Oh my God, he's a Rashee Rice. He's the next Rashee Rice," and they would think he's amazing. So I don't love that as much, but I mean, it shows he's already run a 4.4 40-yard dash. Like he has that speed, 19.25 yards per reception. Like he shows the ability to catch the ball, run with the ball, the yak ability, all that kind of stuff. I think that if Nico I is who we expect him to be, then we should be pretty excited about a guy that's going to be just tearing down the field. Although obviously SEC opponents and all that kind of stuff, I don't know how difficult Tennessee's schedule is as far as him getting on the field and actually like showing up in year one and that kind of thing. But I feel like he's at least going to touch the field. He's not going to be year 1-0 at the very least. So I'm perfectly fine taking a guy like that here. I guess I never actually said the size. 6'1", 186 is what they have him listed at. So like perfectly acceptable. He'll probably be like 200 pounds when it's all said and done, or maybe somewhere close to that, 195, something like that. Yeah, I'd love to see it.
Yeah, I don't mind that. But it is bold if you compare that to the consensus, what you'll see out there. But at the end of the day, he does have a lot of things going for him, being that almost like that 5-star type of level as a recruit. And then, I mean, just very explosive in high school. So is he refined yet? Not necessarily. But I mean, was Jalen Hyatt even refined? And all those years later when he started producing at Tennessee, I think Mike Matthews can come in right away and at least carve out some sort of role there with just that athleticism. And then seeing the other weapons, there's not really a lot of spectacular wideouts blocking Matthews at the moment at Tennessee.
Too much shade being thrown at Brew McCoy here, man. Former 5-star. No, I'm just kidding. All right. I think we can move on further.
Yeah, I mean, you want to talk about the other wide receivers in the room, and you can also point back to a couple freshmen in last year's class and the class before that didn't perform well in pretty much at all, in Nathan Leacock and Kalen Webb, guys that
R.I.P.
we were a little bit higher on, but To be honest, those guys don't play the role that we want in that Josh Heupel offense, but Mike Matthews does. So the concern there is Squirrel White. That's kind of the role that he's looking for. I think Mike Matthews is versatile enough that he can kind of fit in, and they use enough wide receivers that he can get some time in there and probably beat that year 1-0 a little more easily than some of the other wide receivers that we would have been a little concerned about last year. So
I don't have any, I don't believe he's going to develop though at Tennessee. I think I've been listening a lot to DJ Moore on YouTube lately, which is very entertaining, by the way. He's getting into the scouting game. Very fun to listen to him. Anyway, but he made one statement that really kind of clicked with me, just because we don't really say it this way, but he said that receivers nowadays don't know how to route run because they just learn a specific scheme in college. So they're not even asked to adapt to run routes. And I was like, that's really true. I mean, it's kind of true. That's why we say they're system players. And so Tennessee is a specific system. Hyatt, we talked about Hyatt here. Beat year 1-0 mode, disappeared for a couple of years, blows up against Alabama, gets random first round buzz, goes in the third. He still clearly doesn't know how to play football. He just knows how to run really fast in a straight line. So it's I don't know. So I think Mike Matthews is fine for me, but I'm not really too sure about the leaning spot.
I actually think there is some comparisons there between Jalen Hyatt, between the burners he has, and he kind of gallops downfield, gets a lot of speed. But I don't know if I see a lot of twitchiness there. I don't know if I see a lot of wiggle from him. He does kind of have a similar skill set to a guy like Jalen Hyatt. So I could eventually see him in that role. But yeah, we're gonna have to see if he can kind of fit in with how many with Squirrel White in front of him and how many wide receivers they like to get on the field. Hopefully he's one of them.
I do actually, because Colin was saying how you have to be a little concerned about Squirrel White. Now, Squirrel was almost 100% in the slot. Are we expecting Mike to be a slot receiver here? I mean, you guys obviously do the film analysis. That is not my jam. So is that what we're expecting Mike to be?
I think he has more versatility than that, so he doesn't have to just be pigeonholed into the slot. But I think that's the role that you, at least production-wise, hope he kind of gets into in that Heupel offense and in that vertical role as well.
He doesn't seem like he'd be the most. He's not really that refined as an outside receiver to this point. So I do think there could be some growing pains for sure if he is kind of forced to be on the outside. But thankfully, they throw the ball so much. They have, the versatility of how they deploy these wide receivers, where I still think he'll get his involvement early on.
That's good to know, because I kind of just based on everything I've read about him and everything, I kind of expected him to be an outside receiver. So when you started talking about, you got to worry about Squirrel White, I'm like, wait a second, they're playing two different positions. But I'm perfectly fine being wrong about that if that is the case.
Yeah, I think they do run the traditional X size guys on the outside, and
yeah,
for some reason they have this weird fascination with the tall string beans too. Talk about Dante Thornton and Chris Brazzell from Tulane. Anyway, maybe that's going through a weird phase for them over there, but yeah.
All right. Well, we got Colin back up at 109, and we're wrapping up the first round here.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited to get this guy here. I was a little worried Corey was going to take him after how he talked about him on Back to Devy, but I'm going to take my wide receiver 4 here, and this is a guy that I mentioned earlier. We have a pretty clear top 3, but JoJo Trader, going to Miami is really knocking on the door of that top tier for me. He was an athlete for most of the process. He was a two-way player in high school, and he was on the same team as Jeremiah Smith. So his counting stats aren't going to look nearly as impressive as some other guys out here. And he kind of got overlooked at times, but man, I mean, I really like JoJo Trader as a player. I think big concern right now is he weighs about 179 pounds. So he's 6'1". He's a little on the slender side. That's becoming less of a concern in the NFL. So I'm not overly concerned with that, but he's definitely not soft. He's good at the catch point, and he has some of the best body control in this class. I mean, this guy is just making mid-air adjustments, routinely making one-handed snags back of the end zone along the sidelines. He's got great hands, and then he's good athletic profile to go along with it. Clocked at 21.3 miles per hour by our recruiting team over at Campus to Canton. So he's got good long speed. and I think he's got a really quick first step too. He's pretty shifty in the open field as well when he gets the ball in his hands. But I also think he's a really good route runner right now, and I think he could develop into a top tier route runner. I mean, he varies his speed within the route really well. He's got really crisp, sharp breaks, and he really understands how to use defensive backs leverage against them, especially on, some routes like an inside post where he'll start on the outside and then get the corner to flip his hips, and then he's off into the inside and he's just wide open in the middle of the field. JoJo Trader's been getting buzz at the All-American Bowl and in spring practices at Miami. They can't stop talking about this dude. I think he's going to have an early impact here at Miami with Cam Ward year one. Who's the quarterback going to be year two? I don't know, but I don't necessarily know if it's going to matter. I love me some JoJo Trader.
Yeah, and you're lucky because he was in consideration for me over there. It's pretty much, do you want the high upside big play guy, or do you want the guy who, super smooth route runner, super versatile between like going into the slot, going to the outside. And like you said, like, dude, there's like one-handers in his tape. There's like the ball tracking you see, like the adjustments he makes. Like I'm super impressed with JoJo Trader. And I think he's kind of like a hidden gem because like everybody's kind of, focused on Jeremiah Smith over there on his team. Like he was kind of like the unsung hero, like as part of that team, and missed some time because of injury as well. Like didn't get to put up the monster stats that we want to see. So he's kind of like, to me, he's kind of like a hidden gem, like in this class, if you haven't looked deep enough into the tape and his situation.
I have two concerns about JoJo Trader, and honestly, they're probably dumb. But the first one is the research that I did last offseason, looking at all of the top 50 recruits for each of the past 7 seasons. Miami had 7 top 50 recruits over that 7, had 0 hit in the NFL over that period. And so, that obviously this is a Devy pod. We're drafting for Devy purposes here. I'm not saying, obviously, like, just because it didn't work for them doesn't mean it can't work for him. But, it's just one of those things where like they just don't have that proven track record right now. Obviously, going back years and years and years, they do. But right now, they just don't have a proven track record of really putting NFL players into, or at least high-end NFL players into the NFL. The other thing is, just reading up on 247 and everything, they're talking about him possibly being a defensive player, possibly. And I'm now, don't get me wrong, they've said that about multiple players, in other, even some of these top guys. Like I believe they talked about Mike Matthews possibly playing both ways and stuff like that too. So I'm not saying it's just him, but I mean, there's definitely a possibility there that he could end up a defensive player when it's all said and done. So like, there's just two concerns, and it's nothing about the player himself or anything like that, but it's just, man, it's like, it's hard for me to get past it.
Yeah. And I think you're seeing some of the selections thus far. They're not necessarily wide receivers coming from places that are known for developing great talent, at least recently, like Texas Tech landing Micah Hudson, 5-star guy, and same thing with Cam Coleman, Auburn landing him. And there's some other Auburn guys who are going in there and they don't have a good track record. So it's like, do you bet on the talent itself, or do you bet on, maybe a program that has consistent coaching, development, etc.?
Always bet on the town. As Felix Sharp used to joke all the time, I think it was PJ Fleck had more first-round wide receivers than Brian Hartline did up until just a couple years ago. It changes that quick.
Always bringing it back to OSU.
That's Ohio State University.
and that's what I'm saying. I don't want to bank too much on, Miami's never, or, hasn't put anybody into the NFL recently, or anyone of substance. But, it's just in the back of my mind. And so, like, I have JoJo a little bit lower, and those are really the two main reasons. But it's honestly, like, I like all these guys. It's a pretty big tier. I just kind of ended up, like, dropping him to the back end of a tier, essentially.
Well, you're a big fan of Tetera. Oh my gosh, we go with Tet McMillan over at Arizona. Arizona has a pretty poor history there too. So.
Yeah, well, honestly, I did not do anything with recruits back then, and so I didn't actually fall in love with him until he was already a player, and so like as a recruit, I might have been out, which a lot of you guys at C2C were pretty out on him. And I might have been there right there with you. Unfortunately, I didn't really focus on Aaron. Obviously, did, and he probably mentioned his name at one point, and I was like, okay, cool, bro. That's awesome. But yeah, I did not actually care. Now I kind of at least know these names, and so I can sit there and go, okay, yeah, I feel kind of this way. I don't have the experience. I haven't watched all the film, although I've watched film on 2 players now. Like, I'm basically a film bro at this point.
Yeah. Watching Johnny Wilson real life really changed you, huh?
Right. Yeah, but I was watching well, actually no, I don't want to talk about him because he hasn't been picked yet, but I was watching a certain player, and I don't feel like his stats match the play, but we'll get into that a little bit later.
Okay, so my pick's up here, and I'm really conflicted. If this was a real draft, I probably would have been panicking and calling Colin to trade up, throw in like
I would have declined those calls right away.
Throw in some like BS old player he used to like to move up one spot. Yeah, use
Brandon Innes.
back in. Here's Brandon Innes to move up one spot. Yeah, so I guess I'm going with positional scarcity here, and I'm going to take Julian Sain, quarterback from Ohio State. So I'm not like the biggest believer, but he's a really refined short area passer. I think Ohio State is kind of they do really well with quarterback development. Like Kyle McCord hasn't worked out, but like that's not like enough for me to change my mind and be like, oh, they don't do anyone that's good over there. So I'm kind of out on Devin Brown at this point. I don't think Lincoln Kienholz has made a big enough step for it to matter either. So I'm looking at saying to like win the number 2 job his first year and hopefully step up in his second year. I don't know, but I think it's a very thin quarterback class, and I think Julian Sain is the last guy that I have like true interest in. So I'm going to take him here and just solidify my quarterback value. And if I don't like him, I can trade him later because people still value quarterbacks that don't touch the field after the first years. It's an expectation. So I'm going to be one of those guys that says, I'm getting the value. I'm protecting the value.
Not necessarily in Devy, but in a C2C league, I traded Devin Brown for a second round pick last year, and I was just like, just get him off my team.
I'll
do it.
Give
me a second
next year if I don't like how it turns out this year. So I won't be too bad about it.
I will say that like I've always kind of argued against drafting the quarterbacks in the first round, but it's one of those. I mean, it definitely makes sense. Like you can draft them for a first, and if they suck, sell them for a second. It's not the end of the world.
Especially when it comes to somebody that's at Ohio State, and everybody is like chasing the next Ohio State quarterback with what they're doing with their offense over there and their wide receivers over there. So, I mean, Julian Sain is I will say maybe the ceiling is lacking from a lot of the other players, but he might be like the most field ready quarterback of this class, at least at the top half of this class. Like he might be the most ready to get on the field right away. So he could push, I think, for a job in that 2025, depending on what happens, with that room. I know they're bringing in another top 10 recruit. I mean, you still got Devin Brown hanging around. You still got Kienholz hanging around. Like, we kind of have to see how that's all going to shake out for him. But I will say, like, he has a lot of things going from very smart, like football IQ player that I think can make a push for that job in 2025.
So since we're talking about the Ohio State, let me just chime in.
Matt's got to hop in.
Yeah.
I would just say be careful with the Julian Sain hype. A lot of the reason he came there was because of Bill O'Brien, who then turned right around and went to Boston College. Aaron Noland was Ryan Day's guy. That was the guy he went after. He did not go after Julian Sain. Now, look, I graded Julian Sain higher than Aaron Noland. I think he is, in all aspects, a better quarterback, but everybody said Devin Brown was better than Kyle McCord, and whether people realize or not, Kyle McCord was the guy that Ryan Day wanted. He went out and took him over J.J. McCarthy. There's a story I'll tell behind the scenes to you guys about how that went down. He chose Kyle McCord over J.J. McCarthy and stuck with him in that process. So I wouldn't just say Julian Sain's going to be the guy. That'd be my only concern with that.
And then he tossed him to the side for Will Howard.
Which is a horrible decision.
Smart move. Smart move. Yeah.
Smart move. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really tough with those. It's becoming more difficult with the Ohio State quarterbacks because, man, it's rough. Now they're bringing in transfers. It's just like, damn, like who the hell is going to be the quarterback? I think it's always been not Lincoln Kienholz, but at the same time, like we had to at least bring him up at certain points because he was like, oh, he could be the guy, whatever. But yeah, it's getting kind of difficult to say who it's going to be. And I just kind of want to be all out at this point until we have any idea, because who's to say that they don't bring in another Will Howard next year? Unfortunately, it's the new norm, and like what these teams are going to do. And so if Sayan isn't quite the guy that they thought, or he ends up going somewhere else because like Matt said, Bill O'Brien's the reason why he came over, and then Brian was just like, yeah, peace, deuces, he's like, I'm out of here. So yeah, it's a little difficult, but at the end of the first, I don't hate it. I don't like him being an early first pick, or even a mid first pick, but at the end, I really don't mind it at all.
I think you can almost see those situational things like playing out a little bit. Like we were talking about, like how a lot of these programs aren't developing guys, and like we're still going ahead and taking them early. I think like the transfer portal and even NIL has like changed everything in that aspect too. We don't even know where these guys are going to be in a year's time, or in 2 years' time. So it's like at this point, as freshmen, I think betting on the talent is almost the right way to go, because you have no idea where these guys could end up in the future.
That's very true. Aaron, you are up at a 111.
Okay, so yeah, I liked Mike's pick. I was considering Sayan here, but now I got to pivot, and I'm going to actually pivot to the running back position. Nobody has drafted a running back thus far, and understandably, it's not necessarily the most top-heavy in the class. This guy was not going to fall to you another round there, John. Taylor Tatum, Oklahoma running back, 5'11", 205. Pretty much a consensus top 2 running back recruit in this class, high-end 4-star, and just a very productive high school back who could do it all. Good receiving profile and solid burst to his game. I mean, I would expect him to run in the 4.45 to 4.5 range. And honestly, I just think that he's very well-rounded. Like, he doesn't really mess around with these lateral moves, but I still find him to be elusive enough, have good contact balance, and I like that frame coming out of high school for sure. So he ends up going to a nice opportunity there and landing spot at Oklahoma. Whether you think that he takes over year one, or if maybe he takes a little bit of time, I still think he's going to be involved at some point. He is coming off of like a wrist injury at the end of this last season, actually. So I guess we got to continue to watch that, but I still am not scared off of him. I think he's just such an underrated back in many aspects of his game. And I believe when I recently talked about comps with Taylor Tatum, with John actually on the Full Tilt Devy podcast, I brought up Breece Hall, just that underrated runner who wasn't really given the credit that he deserves as a college player, but now people realize, oh wait, he was actually really good, underratedly athletic, all these other things, well-rounded. So I think that Taylor Tatum is the RB1 in the class, at least in my opinion, and that's who I'm taking here at the 11 spot.
Now, just real quick, is there anyone that doesn't have Tatum in their top 2 of the class? Top 2 running backs.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he's not in my top 2.
Yeah, he's my 3. He's my 3.
Okay.
He's in the top tier. I would say, for me at least, I think I differ a little bit from some of them, but he's in my top tier at least. But yeah, if I were to like put a ranking on it, he might be more around like my 3.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not going to tip any names though. I'm hoping somebody makes it back to me. But
we're hoping for
I do like Tatum.
It's tough without giving out names and and all that kind of stuff. But I'll just say, like, he's actually my 1. And so, and once again, I'm the noob when it comes to the freshmen. So I'm not saying I'm the end all be all or anything like that. But I just, there's not too much to dislike with Tatum. And so, we can get into the arguments of what you might like about other players more, but I don't see too much to dislike beyond possibly a broken wrist. But I mean, I'm not going to freak out about a broken wrist for a running back when you have a whole off season to heal and all that kind of stuff. I would assume that he'll be just fine, but that actually brings us to the 112, and Matt, you are up.
Yeah, I have no problems saying names. Cam and Quentin Martin. Cameron Davis and Quentin Martin are the running backs I have ahead of Taylor Tatum, because I'm not taking either one of them here. So I'm going to turn my camera off for a second, just so everybody, doesn't think this is a homer pick. You can't see what's behind me.
Come on.
Oh,
Look, no. I'm just going to spit straight facts here, and then if you guys get upset with it, you can tell me. Everybody loved this player after his junior season. I believe our entire recruiting team, after grading him, actually had him as a tier 1 wide receiver. And then after what he did in his senior season, where he hurt his ankle 2 weeks into the season, and because he didn't produce, everybody dropped him to like wide receiver 6, and that is one Mylan Graham. He is, in my opinion, the best route runner in this entire class. And again, I know I'm giving a lot of credit to Brian Hartline here when I talked about Jeremiah Smith earlier, but going to a coach who has shown the ability to develop those wide receivers, I do think that he is going in there and could become the Chris Olave of that offense. I mean, he was a very lowly rated wide receiver until offered by Ohio State. He was like in the 260 range. And when he got offered by Ohio State, he jumped up into the 60s because that's what the services do. And then he slowly started to rise for them. I don't know where the services have him now, but he is an extremely talented wide receiver. I have no fear of him breaking the year 1 0 mold because he is an incredible returner as well. And I don't think they're putting Mecca back there. It's not going to be Brandon Innes because Mylan Graham is more explosive than him. So I think he breaks at least one of those year 1 0 molds just as a kickoff or punt returner, which then breaks that whole worried about him becoming Brandon Innes. And then next year, I think he is opposite one Carnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith. I think that he has a shot to become Chris Olave in this offense, like the guy who's kind of forgotten about and ends up going as a first-round pick because he was just that talented. I get he didn't play great competition, but I think we knocked him. I didn't. I'll be honest. I did not drop his grade at all because I still saw the same player. He just didn't quite look like he was all there, and I wonder how much of that was the ankle injury, which we just found out about, too. That was not something that was public until recent, and he suffered that back in, I believe it was the second week of the season. I still think he's a phenomenal wide receiver and should just go gangbusters at Ohio State with whoever the quarterback is, Julian Saint, Aaron Nolan. So again, if you're betting on talent and then landing spot and what that the school has produced, like I don't see another wide receiver here. I like Quentin Martin. There's a lot to question there, although again, with what they've been able to do with running backs, maybe he's worth taking here, but I'm taking the wide receiver because the one other thing I will say is this is a Devy draft. A lot of Devy people and a lot of people who play Devy don't pay attention to the year 1 0 theory. So in that case, even if he doesn't break those things, guess what? I got this Ohio State wide receiver who did this, and a lot of people will buy it on that regardless. So if you want to even just go with the holding value part, I think he holds his value better than Quentin Martin does.
There you go.
That's really fair. And I think that, I'm not an Ohio State homer, and yet he was my next pick. So not that he was going to make it back to me because I still have like 5 picks to go, but he was my next pick. So I agree with the pick there. We'll make it a non-homer pick.
Fun fact, I'm actually not a fan of the Ohio State University. I love that team up north. I just put these jerseys back here to throw everybody off. So that's
Makes sense.
It definitely does, but you're actually up for another one there, Matt. Actually, before you do, real quick, Aaron, do you want to run us through the recap of the first round?
Yeah, absolutely. So 101, Jeremiah Smith. 102, Ryan Williams. I suppose I should announce some positions and things like that. So 101, Jeremiah Smith, wide receiver going to Ohio State. 102, Ryan Williams, wide receiver going to Alabama. 103, Micah Hudson, wide receiver going to Texas Tech. 104, quarterback Dylan Raiola going to Nebraska. 105, Cam Coleman, wide receiver going to Auburn. 106, DJ Legway, quarterback going to Florida. 107, TJ or Terrence Moore going to Clemson. 108, wide receiver Mike Matthews going to Tennessee. 109, JoJo Schrader, a wide receiver going to Miami. And then 110 is Julian Sayin, Ohio State quarterback. 111 was Taylor Tatum, Oklahoma running back. And then capping us off was Matt with Mylan Graham, wide receiver going to Ohio State. And Matt is up at the 201, and we'll speed a little bit more through the rest of these picks here, but I think it's going to be a fun round.
Yeah, I'll make this quick. I always want to try and come away with the quarterback in these drafts. So I'm going to go with my QB3, and that's Luke Kromenhoek. I know some people are not as high on him. He graded it out very highly for me, almost just a little bit behind Dylan Raiola and DJ Lagwell. All three of those were in tier 2 for me, though. I actually had no tier 1 quarterbacks for me personally grading in this year's class. But Kromenhoek is an incredible athlete, just started playing the quarterback position a couple years ago, actually played wide receiver for them and defensive back, had an interception in the championship game when Holden Grenier, who was currently at Auburn, was the quarterback for that team, Benedict Military School, I believe, in Georgia. has an incredible arm. I know our max velo isn't as high as Dylan Raiola and DJ Lagway's. I'm sorry, my bad, I thought it was lower than that. Is that 52? DJ Lagway's is at 53. Dylan Raiola is 55. I mean, he can fire piss missiles all over the field. There's not a throw on the field he can't make. He does struggle with ball placement. He does struggle a little bit with accuracy, but he can make all the plays out of structure and on the run. Again, he's an incredible athlete. And just in the 2 years he's been playing quarterback, you see the slow progression of him, and it's gotten better and better. He did have a little bit of a down senior season. But what I love even more is him going to that Mike Norvell offense. And for the life of me, I cannot remember their offensive coordinator, but he also has done a really good job with quarterbacks. Everybody, and I know not maybe everybody on this pod, but there's a lot of NFL draft talk about how much they love Jordan Travis and how he's going to be like a second-round pick or something like that. I don't think he will be, but look at what they were able to do with a player like Jordan Travis. Luke Kromenhoek has all of that and then some. Like, he is Jordan Travis on steroids. I think that is the perfect landing spot for him. Sit for a year, go into that offense, and I think I keep saying he has a chance to be the best quarterback in that class. That's technically a lie. I think DJ Lagway has that opportunity, but I would not be surprised if come, NFL draft 3 years down the road, he's getting drafted ahead of Dylan Raiola because of his athletic skill set.
I like it. I mean, I think that's a little earlier than probably consensus, but I mean, you obviously feel strongly about it, so I appreciate it at the same time. Aaron, you're up at 202.
Yeah, at 202, I'm going to dip back into the running back group here. So I'm going to be the first guy to draft a running back, and I'll actually draft two of them. So I'm going to go with Quentin Martin here, Penn State running back. And I was actually tempted to even go with a different guy here, but I think at the end of the day, another talented running back going to Penn State. We know how they churn out these running backs and how they prepare them athletically. So, for example, Quentin Martin is coming in at 194. Well, we shouldn't actually panic with that kind of weight because we know that guys like Saquon Barkley put on 20 plus. I'm not calling him Saquon. All Quentin Martin needs to do is put on, 10, 12 pounds. He's right there where he needs to be. And he just has such great versatility for the position. He can play wide receiver. He can play running back. So even as a freshman, I could see him getting involved in blowouts after Nick Singleton, Katron Allen are kind of pulled from the game, or B, just as a versatile receiving option. Like, I'm not going to say like he's going to be like DeAndre Swift was, but like they couldn't keep DeAndre Swift off the field because he's just such a great weapon as a very young player at Georgia. I think Quentin Martin could at least get some creative touches at Penn State, but we'll see how creative they ultimately get. But all he needs to do is wait at least 1 year, and then he should start seeing some notable play time. And he ran 21 plus miles per hour in high school. I think he's just a versatile player where he can utilize lateral moves, lateral cuts, and he's somewhat physical. I think he needs to develop as a runner. No doubt about that. I think there is risk with Quentin Martin. I don't think anybody would deny that. And it's difficult to comp him at this point, but I think there are a lot of things going his way ultimately as a player.
And he's listed at 6'2", so I mean, you would assume that he has the ability to the frame, hopefully, to gain whatever weight he needs to. But Mike, who did Aaron skip over that you thought was just a clear miss there?
No. I wanted Quentin Martin. I considered him instead of Julian Sayin, and then no one picked him, and so I already assumed he was going to be gone. And then all of a sudden, I was like, dude, he might still be there, and then he was gone again. So it was quite an emotional roller coaster for me. But I will be dipping into the running back well myself, and I'm going to grab a guy that's been on and off my RB1. I keep rotating at different weeks, but I'm going to get Cameron Davis from Florida State. I think he's the most all-around ready-to-go running back going into college football. He's got the best all-around game. Goes to Florida State. Florida State doesn't really have, I think, much on the depth chart. I'm trying to think about who's really his roadblocks there. Like Tofili is there, I think.
Tofili.
They brought in from
Roydell
Alabama.
Williams.
Yeah, Roydell Williams. That's all.
Okay, yeah. So anyway, there's not much there. Norvell does have a nice, successful history with running backs going to the NFL from his time at Memphis to even Florida State now with Trey Benson. So as long as the school, the pedigree, and I just think the skill set there is pretty good. Now I know our team. I'm not actually sure about current events, but last time I talked to them, they're very excited about the guy in next year's class that's committed to Florida State. He'll be a true freshman. So it's kind of like I don't really care as much about true freshman coming in. If Cameron Davis can like show some flashes enough to actually carve out his own role as a freshman this year without that guy there, then I think Cameron Davis is the go-to guy in the future. So Cameron Davis on and off my RB1 for the class.
I think he has like incredible instincts. I think he has like an incredible base of athleticism. But does anybody worry about these guys that just ran straight out of like being a Wildcat quarterback, like transferring to the next level and like learning those steps along the way to being a more structured running back, like, you know, running out of your I formations, reading your blocks properly. Like he operates just on instincts almost, you know, like when the play breaks down, then he becomes a rusher. There is some design stuff there too, but I guess that's part of his profile that makes him a little bit more raw to me as a player than, you know, having him as RB1 in this class.
Yeah, no, that's like a weird bias for me. I love the Wildcat running backs,
Yeah.
not because I think they
Okay.
work out, but just because like you get to see them like actually like analyze the field in front of them. They have extra space to analyze everything.
Yeah.
And then they make some nice magic happen with their footwork. But yeah, that's a flaw for my scouting process. Like Wildcat wide receivers too, love them. Like Amari Evans, shout out. Like
Yeah.
Florida State really loves their Wildcat quarterbacks turned running backs too. Toafili was a Wildcat quarterback turned running back. Cam Akers, different regime, but
Yeah,
still,
Ward, yeah.
Ward as well or no?
he might have been.
Ward?
Trayshawn Ward might have been too. But yeah, they love that there. So they certainly are with you, Mike.
All right. Well, speaking of Wildcat running backs, who are you taking, Colin? No.
It's not a Wildcat running back, but I am going to take a running back in my RB2 in the class, which a lot of us over at Campus Canton are high on this guy and much higher than the recruiting services are. That's David Eziamume, running back going to Clemson. Oddly enough, he was a 3-star for most of the process. I think he still is a consensus 3-star. But he was at North Cobb High School in Georgia. It's a high level football in Georgia. It's good level of competition. He was Benjamin Hall, the running back who's at Michigan that flashed in the spring last year. He was the running back 2 to him his junior year. And he still had over 700 yards rushing, 500 yards receiving. And he actually led the state of Georgia this year, as Imume did, with 1,100 yards through 6 games before he ended up getting cut short with an injury. But you saw with that 500 yards receiving, when a guy 6 foot 210 who catches passes like that with that type of receiving work, like I really like that skill set. He's also got a 79th percentile power score, 66th percentile speed score in our database. So size speed guy too, got some power runs with him. He's decisive. He looks to get a field as quickly as he possibly can. Kind of, lowers his eyes a little bit, he kind of needs to work on the vision a little bit, but I mean, the combination of size, speed, and pass catching ability, I think this guy has a really high ceiling, at least in terms of NFL. And then at Clemson, it's Phil Maffa, and then it's nobody. Clemson has not recruited the running back position well at all, like very, very terribly. So I think Eziamume earns some work this year to spell Maffa, and then he just is going to take over next year. So I think Eziamume is a guy who, if you follow traditional recruiting services, this pick might surprise you, but definitely keep an eye out for this guy.
He beats out Jamarcus Haynes over there. Is that the right name?
Yeah. Yep.
I will say, I mean, giving you guys credit for Quinshon Judkins, it was another 3-star running back that you guys basically nailed over at C2C. And I feel like it would be the same situation or a similar situation here if it were to happen, because like you said, he's a 3-star prospect. The services do not like him. So it's got to be one of those things where there's a disconnect. Somebody's going to be right, somebody's going to be wrong, but it seems like most of you guys over at C2C are pretty much on him. And then, obviously because of that, your listeners, your followers going into that mock draft, that happened a couple weeks ago, he was drafted pretty damn early. So, of course that's going to always happen, but it's just one of those things where it's a risk, but if it ends up being Quinshon Judkins, it was well worth it, But I guess that brings me up here, and I'll tell you what, I was kind of torn between a couple different players there, but I'm feeling pretty good here And the funny thing is, I guess I'm an Auburn homer now. Like it's the Auburn University, but it's Perry Thompson. Honestly,
Oh,
if it wasn't for Cam Coleman going to Auburn, I would probably be absolutely in love with Perry Thompson. And yet, here we are. But yet, like about a round, actually exactly a round, from when I drafted Cam Coleman, I'm drafting Perry here. And I mean, it's size, it's speed, it's, I mean, 6'3", 205. The guy's thick, like he's built. But then he has track speed. He a sub 1,100-meter dash. Just like you love to see it. And then of course, when you're talking about these big guys, you're always going to have route running concerns and stuff like that. But he's young. He can become a better player, just like a lot of these guys that we're going to be talking about in the second, and possibly even honorable mentions or whatever. It's going to be a lot of guys that maybe have to grow as a player, like that kind of thing. But once again, Hank Brown to the moon. So of course, he's gonna be he's gonna be getting the ball directly thrown right to him, and everything's gonna be perfect, and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I love Perry Thompson here at 205. I don't want to say it's a steal, but I just love getting him here.
No, that was definitely a snipe from you. It's definitely going to be one of my next two picks here. I'm a big Perry Thompson guy. I mean, I even debated with Mike on our show that I actually liked him a little bit better than Cam Coleman, because I thought that senior season, when he became a little bit more than that deep threat or that vertical threat that he was mostly as a junior, like you saw a little bit more yak ability from him. I thought I saw some more like work within his stem as well, like subtle head fakes and more deception throughout his routes as well. Like I see him becoming like a more well-refined receiver, whereas Cam Coleman, I still see kind of just like raw winning above the rim. Like I saw some things there that I really like. So I was definitely going to pick him right there. So you made me a little bit sad there. But at 206, I'll finally go and dip into the running back well myself. And going to pick a guy that's a little bit polarizing in this class because, this is a guy who really didn't play running back until his junior year. That's Nathaniel Frazier going over to Georgia, 5'9", 206. And he's really nice athletic build, like 10.58, 100-meter dash, 21.7 mile per hour time by our recruiting team. But again, one of the hardest parts about his evaluation is the fact that, he's pretty much in a three-headed backfield over in high school as well. He doesn't really have the production to back up the pedigree, but you're seeing his pedigree. Like he's ranked really highly among these services, and that's because some of the traits that he brings, super explosive. He kind of runs like a madman, like good burst. He's like galloping, high knees down the field. He has some great suddenness to his cutting ability too. Like he doesn't really lose much speed when he's stringing together these cuts. Doesn't really dance much on the second level either. Doesn't like not a ton of wasted movement from him, which is one of the things that I really like too. So and given the fact, like from before, that he was kind of like a former wide receiver, I think there's untapped potential there as a receiving threat as well. I know he doesn't really have the stats to back it up as being used that way as a running back out of the backfield, but I think there is some untapped potential there to be split out wide and be an option in that way. So I really like his skill set. I really like his potential. He's going to a powerhouse like UG. I know that they have like a ton of talented running backs there, but this is a guy that I think might actually need some seasoning, and we're less concerned about the early production for running backs when it comes to freshmen. So if he can kind of wait his turn a little bit, get seasoned up a little bit, maybe add a few more pounds there, I think that he has a pretty good upside in this offense. And I love the athletic capabilities of him. And I'm just hoping to see him more around that 210, 215 range eventually by the time we see him hit the field.
Yeah, I like the pick there. I mean, obviously it's always tough with Georgia because there's so many freaking recruits that go there. It's just like, when is he going to see the field? What? But he has it. If it wasn't for him being at Georgia, and which is weird to say because like it was RBU for a while, but like if it wasn't for him being at Georgia right now, if he was at Bama or not, maybe Bama's probably not a good one either, but like if he was at another like quality spot, you would probably say he's the RB1 in the class or RB2 at whatever, something around there. But it's just like, when is he ever going to see the field? It might be 3 years before he actually touches the field, unless like 87 players tear their ACL, PCL, and
that happens at Georgia a lot. That happens at Georgia a lot, apparently.
Right, it's definitely possible at Georgia. Yeah,
it does happen at Georgia, but I will say that Dave Frazier, I mean, he couldn't even beat out his backfield mate in high school. as far as, it's very
that's not even
consuming.
fair though. That's not even fair to say because he was transitioning into being like a full-time running back. You know what I mean? Those guys were, and
No.
the fact that he made it a three-headed split, like going into his senior season, I think is a testament to how good, because that other guy was like the workhorse. I can't remember his name right now, but he was the workhorse in the junior season. Then the senior season, he pretty much pushed his way in there. Like I deserve time too. And it was pretty much like a three-way even split. I guess I see it a little bit differently, but yeah, I get what you're saying by not leading the backfield totally.
Right. And I saw his production dip as far as efficiency. I mean, it's like cut in half. Like, I don't know really what happened with that offense and specifically Frazier that senior year, but there's a few red flags there. But like you said, you can't deny the athletic talent and honestly a good landing spot in the grand scheme of things if you're patient for a guy like that.
Just to give a little boost to Corey there, was for a very long time my running back one in this class. I think you're looking at like a Dalvin Cook type running back that's going to arguably RBU. I don't care if he doesn't see the field for 3 years, because if he breaks out as a junior, he's going to be a second-round pick, and then everybody's going to be like, it doesn't really matter. They didn't play for 2 years. Different for wide receivers. I don't think it matters for quarterbacks. Well, I do think it matters for quarterbacks. I don't think it matters for running backs if they don't see the field to their junior year.
Yeah, I think he's definitely a guy that's probably that could actually benefit from sitting a couple of years. Like I actually don't want to see him on the field right away. Like I think he has a lot of traits to be excited about, but we kind of got to see it. But in the essence of speeding up time here, I'll go right to my 207. I'm going to pick a wide receiver that I don't know if anybody else has him this high. We're kind of getting to that range where we're kind of picking a little bit of some of my guys here, but still a top 10 wide receiver for me. And that's Jeremiah McClellan going over to Oregon. This guy, 6 foot, 190 pounds. Over 40 collegiate offers from one of the most highly regarded programs in college football. Under Armour All-American as well. During his final 2 years of high school, counted for over 750 rushing yards, 1,900 receiving yards, and 41 touchdowns in that span. Very versatile prospect. 24 total touchdowns in his senior season alone, even threw some touchdowns as a Wildcat quarterback, despite battling a foot injury throughout most of the year as well. Really smooth athlete, I thought. Efficient footwork, the ability to gear it down quickly really well. I think that he has kind of, a lack of top end speed, and our recruiting team nailed this on the head by their mile per hour time. It's 20.6 miles per hour. And I don't see like a huge finishing gear there though. What I do see is some quick cutting ability, some savvy ability to win with leverage, and some good agility there as well, between like the good patience he has, the open field vision that he has as a running back, not a running back, but on the running plays that he did have as well. I think he's a fine athlete. He might lack overall explosiveness, and he might be like better suited to be like kind of like a possession receiver, maybe even a slot possession wide receiver, but I think he can move inside, outside. And now he's joining Oregon, and we've seen the kind of blast off that they've taken on their offense as well. I don't think the main worry is how much time he's going to get this year. Oregon is seeing Evan Stewart come in. They're seeing Tez Johnson come in. You still got Jurion Dickey over there, who was apparently injured last year and was really high on a lot of people's boards, but he's kind of a year 1-0 now. I'm kind of worried about how much he's going to be able to get on the field, but I hope some of that versatility that he has in his skill set is going to be able to translate to him getting on the field and showing a little bit and at least breaking some of those 0-1-0 modes. I don't think it'll be huge. But I'm just hoping that he can at least hit some of those thresholds to make us a little more confident going forward.
I like that pick there. I was just say that was somebody that I was hoping fell to me there too. I like that pick with Jeremiah McClellan. You touched on it. There's some bodies in his way right now. Gary Bryant Jr. is still there too. That's a guy
I think he's still there.
That's a guy that, prior to Evan Stewart coming in, I thought Gary Bryant Jr. could do something this year. So he has bodies in front of him and guys who kind of do the same thing that he can do, but I think that room will clear out. So if he can beat that year 1-0 threshold, that's going to clear out next year. And I think he's going to be uber productive there at Oregon.
Dante Moore's wide receiver 1. Here we go.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm not very good at actually speeding up pods, but does anyone actually believe that Dante Moore is still at the level that we thought he was to begin with?
No.
Yes.
I don't go as far as say he's not anymore. He's definitely a skilled player, and in his first season, how many true freshmen, Power 5 true freshmen even got on the field and then not showed out as well as he did, but got as much playing time from the beginning as he did. I think there was a lot of faith instilled in there, and I still think he was one of the more field ready quarterbacks coming in. But there is some parts of his game I guess he still has to figure out, and there was even some reports of some arm fatigue there that has me a little concerned. I think he lines up as more of a game manager manager than I expected, but I'm still fairly high on the guy.
Yeah, I'm not
Bo
worried.
Nix was a game manager though, and you know, like he was a prolific game manager because
Yeah.
of the system and because of everything else. So that might not be a terrible comp, you know, when it's all said and done.
Right.
Bo Nix as Dante Moore.
It's pretty rare for true freshmen to touch the field. Like I think Anthony Calandria is like Jaden Rashada. Like it's hard to find guys that play more than like 4 games. True freshmen.
I'm not at all worried about it. I said at the time when it happened, I thought he was a really bad fit for Chip Kelly's offense, and I think that showed a little bit as well in there. Corey mentioned the arm fatigue, which they were talking about hurting him in spring practice, and then he just went into the season with that. Didn't have very good weapons. Offensive line was poor. I mean, some of the decisions he was making were not great, but he's going to have likely a top 5 offensive line at Oregon his entire career there. Whenever it is, he'll have the weapons. Golly, I wanted to say Dillingham, not Dillingham. Who's the offensive coordinator?
Will Stein.
So, yeah, Will Stein from UTSA as his offensive coordinator. Like, I think his stock's going to shoot right back up to being arguably the top quarterback in this class.
Yeah, but he's in a prove it phase now. There's like guys that are mystery boxes that we haven't seen that are more appealing, but now that we've seen him look bad, he's like in a prove it phase.
What I would say is buy him right now, because for me, there was not much separation between him and Malachi Nelson. And if you're asking me to bet on one of them, I'm betting on the dude who's at a Power 4 conference in the Big Ten with a proven offensive coordinator, is going to have, again, a top offensive line and weapons. And I like Malachi Nelson, but give me Dante.
Nelson's got to prove it too now that he went to the G5. He's also kind of on the bum
that
train
whole
as well.
class has to prove it realistically. There's not one person.
Yeah.
Nelson took the easy route, man.
Whatever.
All right, so now that I threw us completely on a tangent, but I do appreciate the analysis though. I wanted to get a feel for Dante Moore because I'm kind of like leaning towards being out on him, but I appreciate the opinion that maybe we shouldn't be completely out on him. Oh, my wife just brought me some bourbon. So
it's a good wife.
While I'm on the clock,
it's a Wednesday night. What are we doing? School night.
Dude, I was at Universal today. Like, it's a weird week. Let's just put it that way. But here at 2:08, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna throw you guys for another loop here, because I know this is not a running back that a lot of people are big fans of, but I feel like it's mistaken because I've done a lot of research on Kedron Young, and I've looked into him as a quality prospect. The services have him as a quality prospect, and yet I've heard a lot of things from Aaron and from others saying, he only had 6 yards per carry in his senior season. You can't possibly think he's good. That's terrible in high school. And I went and looked. I can't find anything that says six yards per carry. So, I mean, maybe that's on me, but I cannot find anything that actually says 6 yards per carry. What I have found is like only one game on maxpreps.com that's showing, and he was 8 yards per carry, but it's literally the only game. So what I did my second ever film analysis on a player, and I literally went game by game through the huddle tapes. And game 1, he had a 40-yard touchdown run, and I believe I want to say it was like a 27-yard touchdown run. Okay. Game 2, he had a 67-yard touchdown run. Game 3, he had a 93-yard touchdown run. Okay. So that's 3 games right there that if you just take those 4 runs, it's almost impossible, unless he's like basically the second coming of Barry Sanders, where, it's like -2 yards, -2 yards, 90 yards. Like, then it's basically impossible for him to have a 6 yard per carry, or like something else is going on, because every time he touched the ball, it was like 14 yards, 17 yards, 27-yard touchdown, 50-yard touchdown, 93-yard touchdown. Mike's holding his hand, so I'm going to let him correct me here, but I'm just saying from what I saw, I don't get it at all.
Since the start of you saying that you couldn't find it, I Google searched it. It is the 4th link from the top, Sports Illustrated 2023 stats. I got you right here. 226 carries for 1,366 yards. That is exactly 6 yards per carry and 15 touchdowns.
Thank you. I did not look up the defunct sportsillustrated.com when I was doing my stats research, but honestly, like I do appreciate you finding that so quickly. But I mean, going back to, and Aaron just put up completely different stats than what you just said. He said 226
No, that's
carries.
the same. That's the same.
Is it the same? Okay. I'm sorry. I was looking at the second one. I was looking at the 2022. I'm sorry. But yeah, but going to the film, the explosion is there, the big playability is there, and so even if somehow, some way, the 6 yards per carry is true, which is weird, it's not because of not having the athleticism to be a great running back. Now add in the fact that he's 217 pounds, and the only player at Notre Dame that's over 200 pounds, because Aaron sent me something yesterday that they actually just sent out the updated running back weights for Notre Dame. And I believe that Jeremiah Love lost 4 pounds and Jadarian Price lost 8 pounds. And they're both sub 200 at this point. And in fact, I want to say one of them, I don't remember which one it was like 192 or something like that. So now bring in the 217-pound stud back that has explosion and breakaway run rate and all that kind of stuff that I love at the very least. And then think about the fact of who was the stud running back last year at Notre Dame. Oh, it was the big guy. So like, I don't understand why people seem to be kind of completely out on Kedron Young, and I just want to be all in. And so I'm drafting him here at 208.
Yeah. I'm not going to say all in, but I agree with a lot of what you're saying there. I think, there's a lot to like about Kedron Young, just from a profile perspective. 5'10", 217, 88th percentile athleticism in our athletic player database, 21.7 miles per hour. That's more than fast enough. That's good speed. Now, he more kind of has that maintain distance speed. He's not going to break away from guys. But he also, and going to Notre Dame too, like those, you start checking those boxes, and those are the boxes of a prospect at the running back position who gets drafted. Mike just perked up because he knew what I was going to say. That's the profile of a guy who gets drafted on day 2. So
okay, so the list of running backs to get drafted that run 6 yards per carry out of high school, it's Dexter Williams drafted in the 6th round to the Green Bay, who had like some random buzz there for one offseason. I remember that. That was kind of a weird discourse. And then the number 2 name, I don't remember what else it was, but it was a 7th round pick that also never saw light of day. They just don't develop. They don't develop. He actually regressed into his senior year.
He did. That is a concern actually of mine, is that he regressed going into his senior year. 1,700 yards for 7.4 yards per carry as a junior. Senior year, 1,300 yards, 6.0 yards per carry. So a little bit of a concern. He has a couple other concerns in his profile too, but there is also a lot to like, John.
Yeah, and I mean, I was the Audric Estime guy. I still kind of am. Like even going into rookie status now. But I'm just, at this point, I'm following suit. And I mean, it's not like Notre Dame hasn't been kind of putting them out at this point. So I'm going with the pedigree. I'm going with the size. I'm going with just everything. I mean, at this point, it's like, who the hell? I mean, first of all, can we just say, like, Jeremiah Love is not a good running back, right? Like, he's just not a good running back. So if anything, it's going to be Jadarian Price that's going to keep him off the field. And Aaron hates the fact that I just said Jeremiah Love's not a good running back. He's not happy with me right now. But let's bring up, before Aaron can get his quip in, let's bring up Colin with the 209.
With the 209 here, I'm going to stay in the running back tier here, and I think the running backs in this class, it's a kind of a flat tier for me. So I think you're going to see some variance. You saw a lot of guys going off the board here, but I'm going to take Caden Durham, running back from going to LSU. Oh, Aaron's I can lip read, Aaron. I know you were muted, but no, Caden Durham going to LSU, 5'9", 195, little short, a little light right now, but not overly concerningly so. I think he can get to the weight that you're kind of looking for. I think he probably could get to like 205, maybe even up to 210. But this dude has like top end speed, 21.9 miles per hour. His athletic comp in our database is LaMichael James, who, for anybody who remembers the Oregon back there, he was electric.
Did he go to the Jets? Is that no? Sorry, that's LaMichael something. Never mind.
LaMichael P. Ryan?
Yeah, that's P. Ryan.
Yeah.
That's P. Ryan.
No, LaMichael James from Oregon. That's a while ago. But if you want to talk about running backs and their yards per carry, Durham had 10 yards per carry in his senior year, 2,100 yards, 22 touchdowns for a very high level school in Texas. So, I mean, he checks a lot of boxes here. I also think he has some good receiving ability. Going into LSU, a room that's a little bit unstable right now, with probably Caleb Jackson leading it, but they lost Diggs. I haven't been able to find if Josh Williams is back or not, but he was a walk-on anyway. It doesn't really worry me that much. So I think there's opportunity there too. So I like Caden Durham a lot.
It seemed to bother Aaron a lot. Aaron, how'd you feel about that pick there?
Yeah, no, I love it. Great pick there, Colin. Yeah, absolutely a stud. I don't really have a ton to add other than the fact that some of the things that you don't see on film with him is just because he's so good as far as that breakaway speed and taking advantage of good blocking, but also displaying good vision. But yeah, I think that his contact balance, when we did see that out there, or his opportunities to initiate power, elude defenders, I think he has some wiggle to his game. So he's not necessarily just a straight line guy, though that's primarily what you will see if you put on the highlights. So I still think there's enough, patience even at times with a player like that who tends to be more decisive, which is promising. So I guess we'll see how much of Durham that we see as a freshman, but I think at some point the very, very talented and fast running back with decent size, I think he's going to get on the field there. Absolutely.
Colin, you're not worried about Trey Holly over there?
Not anymore.
Yeah, not anymore. Not anymore. Maybe in a different way.
I hear he's killing it over there lately.
I love how after every pick, after every pick, Mike is like mentions a player that I've never heard of, and I actually pride myself on knowing a lot of names, and I'm like, I have no idea who this person is.
You don't have to know who he is anymore. Yeah. Anyway, so at the 210, I can't believe the streak we're doing for running backs. I know the whole year we don't like the running back class, like we really don't. And I'm going with running back too. This is my RB3 in the class. And I don't feel too. I'm going with Johan Cardenas from Vandy. I love Johan Cardenas. And I don't love the landing spot, and I assume he's sticking with it out of loyalty because they picked him first. His junior year got derailed by an ACL injury. I think he played about 7 games out of like the 11 or 12 they play in high school. So played most of the season, was really good the whole season. Comes back early. Like he comes back and plays the next season. Only missed about eight months, I want to say, of actual playing time. A little bit of a slow start on an efficiency level, but finished out for like 2,268 yards with 9 yards per carry and 33 total touchdowns. He also had a 100-yard receiving game, like on 8 receptions. Like he's also not a zero in the receiving game either. Dude's already built. He's like 6'2", 215. I do listen to the official, and the official has like figured out that like Vandy has a very good scouting department. They are they need to leave the SEC, but they won't because there's money there. So, but like there's just not a lot of talent at Vandy. They always get like kind of like their players as soon as the players get good, they hit the portal, they go somewhere better their odds at NFL draft capital. You can't blame them for doing that. But like Vandy seems to be a revolving door of freshman breakouts, and then they leave, and most of the freshmen turn out to be very mediocre. But again, like this is a team that's kind of starved of talent and skill. And I think Johan Cardenas could easily be the RB1 very early. Maybe follows Ray Davis's footsteps and goes to Kentucky, and then we care a little bit more about him. But anyway, I think Johan Cardenas is another complete package type of running back that's already has an NFL build, and he looks like it too. Like we turn on the tape on him, like that's a grown man, stiff arm, and he's like 5'8", 160. Like kid's named Timmy in the backfield. Like it's just terrible. But
speaking of names that I've never heard, no, I'm just kidding. So I appreciate it, and like you said, Vandy does actually, get some quality prospects. They just don't hold on to them. They're the Tampa Bay Rays of the SEC, mixing sports there. But
I did want to add too that he does run 21.2 miles per hour at 6'1", 215, 6 foot flat, 217. Sorry.
paired with a 97th percentile power too. And like to think that he did that in his senior season off of an ACL injury, it's like, what does he have in store for him going forward? You know what I mean? Like we constantly see running backs get better the further they get away from their ACL tear. Even Ray Davis, Marshawn Lloyd, like if we're comparing it to like this rookie
Caleb
class.
Jackson from LSU.
Yeah, exactly. Like whatever. So, but I mean, the further they get away, the better they get. So if he's doing that already there, like I'm kind of excited to see where he goes. He is a little bit more of like an underrated guy, you know, going to Vanderbilt, but I am kind of excited. I got my eye on him for sure.
I like it. That brings up Aaron for the 211.
Don't take my guy, Aaron. Please don't.
I have to. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know who your guy is, but Walker White, Auburn quarterback. I don't know if that was your guy, but yeah, he's just a guy who just has a ton of upside. John has taken 2 Auburn wide receivers thus far tonight. And that just tells you some of the talent that they're bringing into that room. And I think a lot of people are excited about those wide receivers and even some of the guys deeper in this class that Auburn's bringing in. A little bit of a coaching change there, but I do think, even though John likes Hank Brown, I think that Walker White, the high-end 4-star recruit, is just going to be the guy. I think at the end of the day, he just has such great tools where he can put it together and be a high upside prospect that the NFL is going to absolutely love with that athleticism, with that arm strength. I think the upside is huge, but again, we don't know what these quarterbacks, if they're going to develop, if they're going to take it to the next level. I could easily see them or see him not necessarily panning out, but at the end of the day, you want to bet on some of those traits. He's impressed as an All-American Bowl participant. And at the end of the day, I just like so many aspects of that Konami code with that size, arm talent combination. So I'm going to take a shot on him here in the second. I wouldn't take him much earlier than this, but I thought it was time for Walker White going to Auburn.
It doesn't really work with the Hank Brown to the moon, perspective that the Devy Devotional has taken this season, but I understand it, and I mean, it seems like he's basically being considered that like QB4. It seems like like the almost the consensus QB4, probably the consensus QB4 there. So I get it. I don't mind it at the end of the second. But, once again, Hank Brown to the moon. So that's going to bring up Matt, I guess, to round up our draft because, we like to talk. And so we're almost here at the almost 2-hour mark. So we'll go ahead and round it out. And maybe we'll throw a couple honorable mentions there at the end. And then we'll get out of here.
Yeah, I'll go quick. I'm going to take a running back, my RB5, and that's Kewan Lacey going to Missouri. A very, very talented running back, not only in the receiving game, 17 receptions for over 200 yards in his senior season. I know the stat bros aren't going to like him and the fact that he only averaged 6.7 yards a carry in his senior season, but he is extremely bursty and an extremely good wide receiver. Receiving back as well. He has no problem going up and actually challenging at the catch point, has a big wingspan. And this offense has actually produced a lot of NFL backs. Now, not all these guys actually, practically none of them have panned out in the NFL, but Nyheim Hines, Jeremy Nichols, Darrington Evans, Larry Roundtree, Tyler Batty, Cody Schrader, who's probably going to get drafted somewhere this year. I mean, all those guys made it into the NFL. I think Lacey is the best of all of them. We've seen Eli Drinkowitz, the Missouri head coach in that offense, lean heavily on one running back. I know they brought in Marcus Carroll from, I believe it was Georgia Southern, and Nate Noel from Appalachian State. As Colin talked about on one of his Campus Life episodes earlier this offseason, those G5 guys that transfer up to P5 actually don't succeed as much as people think they are. I think Lacey is easily going into Missouri as the most talented back, not just as a rusher with how bursty he is and how good his vision is, but also as a receiving back. I think he at some point ends up taking over as the lead running back from Missouri and will be in the battle for one of the top running backs in this class because it is a weak class.
Do you not see a little Isaiah Pacheco when you're watching Kewan Lacey? Just like a madman running, maybe a little bit lack of patience if that's a ding you on it. But I just love his running style. It's like 100 miles an hour. Like the minute he gets the ball, and it's quick cuts. It's quick. It just reminds me of Pacheco so much.
He's almost all burst, but I think he's going to fit perfectly in there with that offense. Like he's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
All right, well that's the second round there. We'll go through it real quick, and we have Luke Crummenhook at 201, FSU quarterback. Quentin Martin, running back out of Penn State at 202. Cam Davis, running back, FSU at 203. David Eziomame, running back for Clemson, 204. Perry Thompson, Auburn wide receiver at 205. Nathaniel Frazier, Nate Frazier, Georgia running back at 206. And then I just moved my screen, so now I screwed myself up. But Jeremiah McClellan, wide receiver for, I believe, Oregon, 207. And Kedron Young, Notre Dame running back, 208. Caden Durham, LSU running back, 209. Johan Cardenas, Vanderbilt running back, 210. Walker White, Auburn quarterback, 211, and then Kewan Lacey, Missouri RB at 212. So that rounds out our first 2 rounds of the Devy draft. And like I said, we knew we were going to talk a lot, so we kind of assumed we were going to do 2 rounds here. We thought we might get into 3 rounds just because of that. Does anyone feel like there's a name or 2 that has to be mentioned here? Like they should at least be considered to possibly be in the second round, something like that. If things fall right, spring practices, like that kind of thing, or we can't leave this draft or this mock without actually mentioning this player's name.
I've got 2. Does everybody else have one? I'll go quick. Miles O'Neill, quarterback going to Texas A&M, I think has a chance to be one of the better quarterbacks in this class. Extremely good arm, really talented, very smart passer as well. I think he has a chance to take over for Connor Wigman. I love him in that Colin Klein offense as well. And one that I guarantee you nobody on this pod is going to mention, little bit of a deep sleeper, probably would not take him in the second round, but you will be talking about him in Devy circles here in the next couple of years. And that is one Malachi James, athlete, going to play wide receiver at Syracuse, fighting Kyle McCord. Let's go. 22 miles per hour. He actually won the gold medal, has Olympic speed in the 100 meter and 200 meter as a sophomore in the NGSIA Meet of Champions. He is an incredibly good athlete. Not only did he play quarterback for his high school, he played defensive back, running back, and wide receiver. In one game, he ran for a 95-yard touchdown as a running back. He caught a 65-yard pass as a wide receiver. He threw a 16-yard pass as a quarterback, and he had the game-sealing interception. Incredible, incredible player. Again, going to Syracuse, he will be a guy I think we are talking about in a couple of years as a steal. 5'11", 195, over 22 miles per hour. You're welcome.
I like it. Everyone raised their hand. So Colin, it looks like you're ready to talk.
Yeah, I just had one guy to mention here, and it's another running back. Again, like I said, it's kind of like a flat tier running backs, but a guy who we didn't take here, James Peoples, running back going to Ohio State, 5'9.5", 200 pounds, pretty good size, pretty good athletically, 21 miles per hour, 52% percentile athleticism, good production as a junior, 1,900 yards and 28 touchdowns. Hurt as a senior, only played 5 games, still had 900 yards and 10 touchdowns. He's got pretty good hands too. And then you go going to Ohio State. Yeah, he's not going to see the field at all this year with Quinshawn and Travion ahead of him. But after that, it's going to clear out a little bit. And I think there's going to be an opportunity for James Peoples. So you might have to be a little patient with him, but that's a guy I like in this range too.
Yeah, I was going to mention
like
James Peoples there. I think another running back, too, that maybe could have been mentioned, Jordan Marshall going over to Michigan, 5'10", 200 pounds, pretty high in their recruiting services as well, at 21.2 miles per hour. Like his play strength, like his vision. He's kind of a long strider. Shows some promising signs of receiving ability, too. But, maybe there's a lack of suddenness there. Like, it's a little bit of a build-up speed. There's some gaping holes on his tape, too. So I'm interested to see how it kind of translates to the next level with him. But, like, Michigan running backs, we're kind of looking for the next one that's going to come up after Donovan Edwards leaves. And, Donovan Edwards isn't really hitting the highs that we had hoped. So there might be room for somebody else to contribute here. I'm not sure if it's going to be Jordan Marshall. It's a very, very loaded backfield there. So we'll see how that plays out. And then just one deep sleeper, probably wouldn't be a second round pick, but a guy that I kind of like, Jason Patterson going over to Kentucky. 5'10".
Go Cats, baby.
Yeah, got 5'10", 203 pounds. Again, a situation where there's not a lot of people backlogged there. And, I know Chip Trainum just went over there, but he's on his last year over there. But he hit 21.9 miles per hour as a runner, 91st percentile agility as well. Like just under 4,000 yards the past 2 years. Like there's a lot to work with there. A nice foundation of traits. And I think he could be kind of like that next guy to take over that role for Kentucky, assuming they don't bring anybody else in. But just a guy I'm keeping an eye on at least.
I like that. My guy here it's a tough sell. This is a tough sell. I just want to fully admit that ahead of time. I really do like Aaron Butler's skill set. He was early, my wide receiver 4 in the class, like very early on in the season. He only played 4 games this year. trying to pull it up. 28 receptions for 586 yards and 5 touchdowns. That's 100. That's a little. I'm rounding up. 150 yards a game receiving. His team was like 1-3, not going to make it to the playoffs, and so he just called it quits kind of early. It's like, all right, I'm just going to focus on college and training for college, and that's it. But on those like 4 games, like there was like body adjustment type catches. He's 6 foot 175, but also like showing some nice, quick, twitchy movement, like really nice, like joystick type movement in the middle of the field, and was also showing like 2-toe drags on like sideline balls, don't like throw it to him, and one-handed grabs, like mossing dudes. And it's just a 6 foot, 175-pound guy. I think he would have risen much higher in the recruiting services if he played the rest of the year and just decided not to. Now, the tough sell is that I appreciate that he flipped from Colorado, but then he chose Texas. Now, I was down for that. And then Texas got Isaiah Bond and Matthew Golden in the portal. Isaiah Bond, Matthew Golden, and Jonte Cook, I think all play the same position that Aaron Butler can play, and they can all do it better than him. So this would be a situation where he's not going to win out. They just have to be blowing somebody out, and they just give him time to play. Maybe some special teams contributions. But this is a guy I have a hard time saying like he's going to touch the field, but I really do love the talent. And if I eliminated all of the landing spots in Devy, I think he'd probably be my wide receiver 6 or 7.
Okay. I like it. I mean, he's a talented player, just like you said. Tough spot where he lands, absolutely. I'm just going to throw a couple more running backs out there since we're just throwing out names. Not necessarily guys I believe strongly should have been within the second round of the draft, but I think maybe some consideration, and you might see them go in that range in your drafts, would be Jarrett Gibson, Texas running back. Pretty highly rated guy, and we love what Texas has been doing, picking out these running backs the last few years and developing them as well. And just a solid all-around guy. He was not that efficient, though, as a senior, and he's not the most explosive guy, but he is very versatile. He has the size that you want to see. And then a guy that I guess I'm going to be the high guy on him, but Jordan Lyle, Miami running back. Now that's a little bit contingent on his size. So if I start seeing at the beginning of the season, he's like in the 180s, okay, maybe I will actually jump him down, but I've seen 190. I'm hoping by the time he actually sets foot on campus, that's bigger. And at the end of the day, he's just such a fun watch. If you haven't been able to go see some of his high school film, recommend checking out Jordan Lyle, Miami running back, who has been rated as highly as the RB1 for On3.
Yeah, I probably should not have gone last year because I was going to talk about Jordan Marshall and Jarrett Gibson, but yeah, that didn't work out quite as much as I wanted it to. But I will say I'm very high on Jordan Marshall, and then when you think about Michigan and their offensive line and all that kind of good stuff, and the fact that Donovan Edwards has not proven to actually be a running back, there's definitely the possibility that he could see the field at some point this year, or at the very least next year. So I definitely like having him. The last player that I would even like truly consider that like has to be on here, and I don't even know if he really has to be, is Nigerian Tuggle out of Georgia. And it's more just about, it's a wide receiver, it's Georgia, like not saying that they're wide receiver but like he's gonna be in the national headlines, assuming he gets on the field and does all that kind of stuff. He's a little raw, but he's great size, good athleticism, things like that. So I feel like when it's all said and done, high 4-star recruit, like there's certain things that we should be excited about. We just saw a lot of players leave Georgia. We saw obviously Brock Bowers, we saw Lad McConkey and now we're left with Dominic Lovett, and obviously I love London Humphreys more than anyone else, but he's not like truly proven or anything like that. So I wonder if Tuggle can get on the field year one and do something, and then at least rise up the ranks. So I feel like he should be mentioned. I'm not saying like he like, oh my god, you got to draft him or anything like that, but I feel like he should be mentioned. But Jordan Marshall was my guy. But that was enough. We're very close to the 2-hour mark. I really do appreciate you guys jumping on here. It was awesome. Talking the 2 rounds. I would love to go 4, 5, 6 rounds with you guys because I love the analysis that you guys gave. But the reason why we brought them on was because these guys are in the trenches right now working on the freshman and supplemental guide for campus2canton.com. They are doing all that, writing up all the profiles. So not only do you get the analysis here, but then you get a written out profile, page by page, player by player, and everything. I subscribe to campus2canton.com. I have their freshman and supplemental guide from last year. That's how, before I created FreshBet, that's how I was sitting here trying to figure out who these freshmen were and all that kind of stuff. I highly recommend it. But I don't know who wants to start us off. But what are you guys working on? Obviously, it's coming out very soon. I believe in 2 days, something like that. So, what are you guys working on? Are you excited about it? Who are you the most excited about? Who did you write up? All that kind of good stuff.
Yeah, so 2 days, you nailed that. So it'll be released March 1st. If you pre-ordered it, pre-orders are available now over at the website for 10% off up until noon tomorrow. So when you're listening to this, right now and in podcast form, go over there to the website, pre-order that. But it'll be available at midnight on March 1st. It'll be in your inbox if you pre-ordered it. It'll be available for download if you're a member over at the site or for purchase. Over 180 profiles in there, 150 freshmen. We go deep in this thing, full page profiles on all these guys. We have mile per hour times that we talked about tonight. We have ball velocity time that we talked about tonight. We have a ton of other stuff in there. It's probably my favorite thing that we put together.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely my favorite thing. I'll go next because I don't work on anything except for like the guides. I don't write articles like the rest of these guys do here. It comes out March 1st. I'll say check out Isaiah Marshall, quarterback, and Arrington Maiden, quarterback. Those are two of the profiles I wrote up that I was actually most excited about, that I guarantee most people, John's probably looking at like, I don't even know who those two guys are. Check them out.
Arrington Maiden shout.
Yeah, those are going to be some really fun CFF quarterbacks that I wrote up recently. Wrote up a lot of quarterbacks. But yeah, it's a great guide. I love putting it together every year. It's so much fun to see what these guys put together. And Devy guy will be next.
Wait, what was that quarterback's name?
Arrington Maiden going to Memphis, and Isaiah Marshall. Oh, where's Isaiah Marshall going? I forgot now.
UAB?
Kansas. No, Kansas.
All right, well, my name's John Arrington, so I have to love Arrington Mavis or whatever the hell his name is. Maiden. Okay, yeah. So he's my new favorite quarterback, and I love him to death. Corey,
come on, Corey.
Yeah, were you a part of the process? Are you loving these recruits? All that kind of good stuff.
I love to dive into the recruits, and we do quite a bit of it over at back to Devy, looking into them. But the recruiting team does their own stuff over on the Devy team. We are focusing on the Devy guide right now. We're in the background writing those profiles right now, trying to get a good jump on it so we don't have so much stuff to do when the time actually comes. But about early May, we're aiming for about May 1st for that thing to come out. So I mean, that's about 250 profiles, unique profiles as well, full write-ups, advanced statistics. You're talking about 80 wide receivers, 70 running backs, like 50 quarterbacks, maybe about 25 tight ends, because we don't really like tight ends all that much. So somewhere around that range anyways. But I love doing that project every year, and it really gives me another chance to even go back and reaffirm my analysis on these guys and looking back into these guys. But I love the product we put out. Everybody is doing a great job on it, and our writers get better every year. So if you guys love the freshman product, which I love myself, I think you guys are going to really love the Devy product as well. The Devy guide that comes out on May 1st.
They get better every year because we add people like Aaron to it to make us look better.
Exactly.
Well, that is nice of you guys to say, and nice of you guys to come on. I really do appreciate it. So had some great content tonight. And is there anything else you'd like to say there, John? Because I think that was an excellent, summary of where this freshman scene is at this point.
Well, no, I was just trying to remember what the old school number 2 Devy podcast at Campus Canton changed their name to, and I cannot remember what it is now.
Campus to Canton Live.
Campus to Canton Live, which I probably should be able to remember, but I was so used to everything else. But I just wanted to mention all the different shows that they have, because Campus Canton Live, Matt is on that, quite a bit, but they're, they usually have a mix of players. And then we have Back to Devy with Corey and Mike. I listen to every single week. And then we also have Colin and Austin, doing campus. Jesus, now I forgot that one.
Campus life.
Life. Too much of
Campus
that
life.
bourbon.
Yes. Yeah. Too
Much
well,
campus.
yes. Campus life. And so we have that as well. They have all those podcasts and so much more. I mean, they're honestly, what do you guys even know the number of podcasts that you have at this point? I mean, it's got to be like what, nine different podcasts, something like that.
I think at different points throughout the year, it's almost 9, considering like when the freshmen,
The seasonal ones, yeah.
when he brings the freshman one, and then we have draft ones, and we have like, we have quite a bit. The official, the ones the Dynasty guys do, betting stuff, like
DFS.
DFS, the start sits, the double podcast from Chasing the Natty that they do every, there's quite a few.
There's 8 that go throughout the year, and then it goes up from there when in season comes. And if you count the 2 shows that Nicholas and Allen do a week, if you count those, then there's 8 weekly shows.
Yeah, and they do CFB Winning Edge too.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say the 2 pods that Austin makes a year, but
hey man, you said it, not me.
Right? No, I'm just kidding. I know he's a busy man this time of year, but no, I was just trying to point out that like they literally have everything that you could possibly want when it comes to Devy, C2C, all that kind of good stuff. And I mean, whether it's CFF, campus, Canton, all that kind of good stuff. You know, probably adding Devy Devotional soon. No, I'm just kidding. But but I really do appreciate you guys coming on. It was so much fun. Aaron, do you have any words of wisdom for us before we get out of here?
I just think it would be wise to definitely follow all these guys if you're on Twitter, or at least subscribe to campus2canton.com. Get some of this content that is dropping if you're interested in these freshmen, or just in general, Devy C2C, trying to get into those leagues. There's certain things like the Discord and other avenues you can go to really get some of this knowledge, connection with some of the contributors and some of the people who subscribe to the site.
Absolutely. And we will obviously put all of their names and ats and all that kind of good stuff in any descriptions and posts and all that kind of. So we will have that. We do appreciate you guys for listening. I appreciate you for jumping on with us, especially, Mike, for just jumping on whenever the hell he felt like. But once again, we appreciate you guys listening. It was a lot of fun. 2-hour mark. We will see you next time. We're cashing out. See ya.